Hey, so finally wrapped up the install as well as the troubleshooting, the debugging for this saber. So here's your Electrum Sabercrafts Ebon Razor, reinstalled with a Proffie 3.9 with a removable chassis. Up here, oh, actually probably can't see it yet. So let's get into the internals of it. So to access the chassis, you need to remove this outer sleeve. It's held in with a retention screw here. This, I believe, is like a 832 Imperial screw. Not quite sure, but I'll be using a 564 Allen key, Imperial Allen key. So just loosen that. You kind of want to loosen it as far as you can without backing it out all the way, because as you're sliding this sleeve down, you don't want this to be touching the switch plate. So just removing that. We've got an inner sleeve here. Here's your switch plate. We've got some logos here, Mythosaur there, Deathwatch, and the Mudhorn. The chassis slides out like so. So here's your chassis. Originally we wanted to go with a glitter black chassis, but instead I opted for a kind of silver, like metallic rub and buff finish because I felt like it fit the Dark Saber a little bit more, as it is a more of an ancient relic. So here's your chassis. I put a Mythosaur at the back. We have this glitter silver back panel here, where there are accent LED strips behind it. That way, once you insert the chassis, it's gonna light up through these vents. I've got a custom 10 connection chassis connector that I designed. Basically for this one, I wanted to control the three pairs of LEDs on the switch card, as well as the touch buttons. And then 4 more connections for NeoPixel with blade detection. Up here we have our White's Proffie 3.9 board. We've got a kill switch, got a battery holder here, and then a 28mm dark side Smuggler's Outpost bass speaker. So let's put a battery in here. Takes an 18650 Keep Power Protect battery, the button top one. So I like to do negative side first because I do design my battery holders with a little lip here to hold the battery in a little bit tighter. So when you're inserting it, I like to do negative first, compress the spring, and then push it into the positive end. And then just toggle that on. So currently it's on the faulty Dark Saber font from J. DeLorean, which doesn't have a boot sound, which is why you didn't really hear anything. So on camera it probably picks up the window as if it's completely illuminated, but in person you actually see kind of the individual. So let me show this off. So when I designed the panel, there are kind of like squares here, which line up with the individual pixels on the pixel strips underneath. On camera it shows up as if the entire panel is illuminated, but in person you kind of see each of the pixels illuminating through those windows. So when you're putting the chassis in, oh, one more thing to note. With the chassis, I designed the Proffie holder so it's angled, which makes it easier for USB access, so you don't need to use an angled micro USB connector. You can just use a regular micro USB connector cable, as well as the SD card is a little bit easier to access. I would still recommend tweezers if you do want to access it. So when inserting the chassis, you want to make sure that the Mythosaur and the illuminated panel lines up with this kind of cutout here, as well as the vents, because this is an indexed chassis connector. Inside there, you probably can't see it, but there is kind of like an indexing pin, which lines up with this hole right here. So that hole right there. So you want to make sure that's lined up. So inserting chassis in. I actually like to insert it at a slight angle, so I can kind of feel for where that indexing pin is. And then once I hit that indexing pin, I kind of just rotate the chassis until I feel that it's kind of in that hole that I designed for it. and then just push it in. So I'm gonna compress the chassis. Make sure everything's connected. So let me tighten this sleeve back on. Oh, one thing to note, when removing the chassis, sometimes the chassis might actually slide into the lower sleeve. So let me demonstrate that. So when removing the chassis, sometimes the chassis would actually end up being in the lower sleeve, like so, as you're removing it. Usually I like to just kind of wiggle it out using the mythosaur. It's kind of like a way to dig my fingernail into. So let's put that back in. Then we want to make sure that the sleeve is on, and then tighten the retention screw back. This one right here. So with this one, I have it configured so that the top button is the main button. And the bottom button here is the auxiliary. So both of those are touch buttons. I've kind of configured the threshold so that you do kind of need to exert a little bit more pressure to actuate it, but sometimes if you brush against it, it might still actuate. So let me coat the speaker. So here you can see I've replaced the LEDs on the switch plate with all white LEDs. So Electrum provides the option of like red, blue, amber, or green. I found another similar LED from the same manufacturer in white, so I just swapped those out. One thing to note is that while most of these are white, there's this one here, I'm not sure if I can pick up, that shows up as yellow. So I tried replacing the LED a few times. It might actually just be the PCB for the switch plate itself that's blocking off some of the light. I've tried drilling through it, but it's still showing up as yellow, which is a little bit strange. But if you tilt the Saber a bit, some of them might actually look yellow as well. So just something to note. So I'm gonna turn on so. So in there, I'm not sure if you can see, but I have one of my newer NeoPixel connectors in white. So waiting for that to turn off. So yeah, my NeoPixel connectors in white. So let me put a demo blade in here. So I have a bit of a longer blade to show the silver a little bit better. So when inserting the blade, make sure you back out this retention screw. Insert it. Oops, accidentally. Once again, I accidentally brushed over the main switch. So you notice that there's also blade detect configured on this. So we got your faulty dark saber, smooth swing, axis swing. You got blaster box. You have flash on clash. So with OS 7, they actually kind of fixed the clash sensitivity a little bit. So we kind of don't have that issue anymore where it's just hard to clash or clashes too easily when you ignite the saber. So let's go through the sound fonts. That was the Kyber Plasma sound font. The next three are three different variations of the Kyber Eternal, I believe. Yep. Eternal sound font, which you wanted in teal, but I believe by default it's in red and you can actually color change through it, so let me try that. Yep. So to kind of color change through it, you hold the auxiliary and then tap the main button. So we kind of cycle through the blue. If you're changing through the colors, you want to make sure that you let go of the auxiliary and then redo the motion again. So hold and tap. So it's yellow, it's green, kind of a cyan. Lightsaber, the bells, the Christmas sound font. It's got a bit of a long pre-on sound. Sound font with firecrackers and fireworks.
My rightful place is leader.
So yeah, there you go. Finally installed with Proffie 3.9. We figured out that the Proffie V3 board had some issues with touch buttons, which weren't encountered until now. So we finally got it installed, got the J. DeLorean sound fonts loaded on there, and I'll get this video edited. I'll send instructions over to you, as well as a config file. I'll have the config file saved on the SD card, but also send that to you and make sure we'll get everything sorted before sending it back to you. So once again, thank you so much for your patience. This was a pretty long project. We ran into a few hurdles, but it's finally done and it's ready to go home. So yeah, thank you for the opportunity, and may the force be with you.